Shalom Aleichem Mishpachim. This is a continuation of my Sefer. Well, not my Sefer. It's the Vilna Gaon Sefer, but I own this. Okay, so it's Iggeres HaGra, letter of the Vilna Gaon to his family, as he, the Vilna Gaon, was about to embark to Eretz Yisrael. He wanted to leave his family with an ethical will, an ethical chizuk, like instruction, so they would not fall to any despair as he was absent, as he was gone on his way to Eretz Yisrael. So let us continue. We are left off here. So this is a small book, but nonetheless, let us continue. The denigration of this temporal world. It is well known that this world is all vanity, that very amusement is worthless, and woe is anyone who pursues vanity which is not advantageous. Every amusement is worthless. All amusements in this world have no substance. They are like nothing, and even if a person thinks that they give him joy, it is merely a figment of his imagination, and in truth, he gets no true pleasure from them. The Nefesh HaChaim writes at length that the Yetzer Hara fools a person into thinking that he truly desires worldly pursuits, but in fact it is the Yetzer Hara that desires them, not the person himself. As the Mesilas Yesharim writes in chapter 1, Chazal have taught us that man was created solely to find pleasure in Hashem and to derive enjoyment in his presence, for this is true pleasure and the greatest enjoyment that can be found. And woe is anyone who pursues vanity which is not advantageous. In fact, man by nature throughout his life is a pursuer, as the Gemara in Brachos 28b states in a prayer. I run and they run. I run to the eternal life, and they run to a deep pit. At the end of Shmoneh Esrei, we similarly pray that our souls should pursue mitzvos. The Gra here means to decry the choice of the one who, faced with a choice of what to pursue, elects to channel his natural inclination into the pursuit of nothingness, and not toward the pursuit of Torah and mitzvos. Enjoy, don't envy another's wealth, for riches are hoarded by their owner to his misfortune. Koheles 5:12. As he had come from his mother's womb, naked will he return. As he came, he must depart. And what did he gain by toiling for the wind? Hopelessly, even if he would live 1,000 years twice over. But find no contentment. Do not all go to the same place? Riches are hoarded by their owner to his misfortune. This pasuk alludes to an instance where the possession of wealth can bring one harm. Breshis Rabbah says this may refer to Lot, who hesitated leaving Sodom, even risking perishing together with the city, as he struggled with abandoning the great wealth that he had accumulated there. Or it may refer to Korach, whose wealth caused the arrogance with which to dispute Moshe Rabbeinu's leadership. See there for other examples of where the desire to maintain one's wealth served someone poorly. Why then should someone envy the wealthy, when wealth may well bring grief in the end? Another approach to this pasuk is found in Koheles Rabbah, where Rabbi Mona explained that the pasuk means to describe a situation where one is falsely accused of some wrongdoing, and he is forced to buy his freedom with his fortune. It thus turns out that his riches were hoarded by their owner for the purpose of saving him from his misfortune. Why then should someone envy the rich, when their wealth is only designated to help them in times of misfortune? According to this approach, one might argue that perhaps one should aspire for wealth in order to give him relief in case a misfortune comes his way. But this is a mistake. It may well be that it was his money that brought about sin, that brought about misfortune, and if he would not have had the money to begin with, no misfortune would have befallen him in the first place. On many occasions, Rabbi Aharon Yehuda Leib Steinman would sometimes respond to people who requested bracha for wealth. Who is to say if wealth is a good thing? He often related that the author of the Hafla'ah once blessed a person with riches, and indeed he and his children became wealthy, but in the end the wealth did more harm than good, as it led to his children becoming associated with a bad element of people, to the point that the recipient of the blessing was left without any Jewish descendants. As he had come from his mother's womb, naked will he return, exactly as he came. He must depart, even if he should live 1,000 years, twice over. There is no point in accumulating wealth that provides no benefits after death. Everything that a person toils to earn will be for naught on the day he passes away, as one leaves this world in the same way he entered it, empty-handed. And even if a person will live for thousands of years, his end will be the same as everyone else. Why should a person be jealous of the wealthy and hope for wealth, when he will not be able to take it with him when he passes away? At that point he will be accompanied only by his Torah study and the good deeds that he has performed. Even if man lives many years, let him rejoice in all of them. But let him remember that the days of darkness will be many. All that comes is vanity. And of joy, what does it accomplish? Tomorrow you will cry for having laughed today. Even if man lives many years, let him rejoice in all of them. Up to this point, the Gra has spoken of the futility and frustration of amassing money in the course of one's life. Here, the Gra adds that this will negatively impact one's constant duty to be in a joyous state of mind. The Pasuk in Mishle states, "All the days of a poor man are wretched, but a good-hearted person has a perpetual feast." The Gra comments on that Pasuk. The Mishnah, Pirkei Avos, teaches, "Who is happy? One who is content with his lot." It would then appear that a poor person is one who is covetous and dissatisfied with what he has. Such a person's days are all bad, because he will never be able to fulfill his desires. But someone who is content with what he has will be filled with joy, much as someone drinking at a feast. But instead of the temporary joy provided by drink that wears off shortly, the good-hearted person who is happy with his lot will enjoy perpetual happiness. The Gra there clearly states that satisfaction with one's lot is true wealth that can accompany a person always. This pasuk similarly stresses that it is within one's power to rejoice in all his days, if he is just happy with his lot. Let him remember that the days of darkness will be many. All that comes is vanity. The Gra here alludes to the dark days when a person lies buried in the ground, at which time he can no longer busy himself with Torah and good deeds. With this pasuk we are amply forewarned. Take care to use your time in this world on worthy pursuits that will help you for eternity, instead of the empty pursuit of wealth and other temporary pleasures. Do not lust after imaginary honor, for it is worthless, and time is a traitor. It is comparable to scales, which elevate the light and lower the weighty. Do not lust after imaginary honor, for it is worthless. The Gra warns us not to crave imaginary honor that feeds one's arrogance, which is worthless and is not true honor. Only honor derived from Torah scholarship is worthy and worthwhile, as the Mishnah, Pirkei Avos, teaches, there is no honor but that of Torah. As Mesilas Yesharim in chapter 22 writes, honor is nothing but the futility of futilities, which causes a person to act against his better judgment and against Hashem's will, and causes him to forget his obligations to serve Hashem. One who recognizes it as such will certainly find honor repulsive and will hate it. And Mesilas Yesharim, chapter 11, also writes, but in truth, genuine honor is true knowledge of Torah, and anything else that people consider honor is nothing but imaginary honor, futility that has no value. And time is a traitor. It is comparable to scales, which elevate the light and lower the weighty. Since fleeting honor is not genuine, but mere flattery and falsehood, then, as time goes on, the honor will surely rebel against its owner, dissipating and leaving its owner humbled. Like items in a balance scale, something raised high in one pan in importance can shortly find itself lowered in ignominy. Honor accorded to someone, if based on mere passing significance, with time come and go easily, whereas honor based on Torah is as eternal as the Torah itself. The world is like one who drinks salt water. He imagines it questions his thirst, but it only makes him thirstier. No one leaves the world with even half his cravings in hand. What profit does man have from all his toils under the sun? The world is like one who drinks salt water. He imagines it quenches his thirst, but it only makes him thirstier. All the desires of this world are compared to salt water, for attaining the object of his desire only brings about a thirst for further desires, never able to acquire enough. He will live a life of frustration and anger. Ramban in Devarim says, a satisfied person does not desire things that are bad for him, but should a bit of desire enter that man's heart, and he indulges that desire. By doing so, he adds even more desire to his soul, and his soul will thereafter thirst for what he ate or did, even more than at first. He will also then desire evil things that he did not desire originally. Since enjoying this world's pleasure are like imbibing salt water, even at life's end, a person cannot expect to pass on in peace and calmness, for at every moment he will still be seeking fulfillment from the vanities of the world. And so, even at the moment of death, he will be disappointed to have attained barely half of what he craved. What profit does man have from all his toils under the sun? With this, the Gra concludes his admonitions on the topic of pursuit of worldly gains. Gra, quoted in the Sefer Barach HaShachar, explains the quoted pasuk to allude to the fact that the only advantage man has over the animal world is his neshama, that gives him the ability to engage in Torah study, perform mitzvos, and do good deeds. But one whose higher efforts are no different than that of an animal forfeits his entire position of superiority over animals. Alternatively, on this pasuk in Koheles, the Sefer Seder Hayom writes, mankind's greatest mistake is that they place their primary trust in their wealth and money, and pursue it through the seas and deserts, day and night. They believe that this determines a man's worth, and they make this their primary pursuit. All other pursuits in the realms of Torah and mitzvos are secondary. Koheles thus says, what profit does man have for all his toils beneath the sun? He means to say, even the most successful person has no advantage over other lesser accomplished men, for at the end of the day he is under the sun, meaning he is like any other creation who is here but temporarily, and even if he's here today, he will be in the grave tomorrow. His wealth could very well then be left for some stranger that he never intended to inherit him. As he passes away, this will pain him endlessly, and he will immediately regret all his efforts to accumulate wealth that strangers will enjoy in his place. The Seder Hayom there concludes, how much better would it be if had only foreseen this in the beginning of his sojourn, seeing where his pursuit of wealth would end. If he had done so, he would have surely dedicated his efforts to accomplish deeds that will last forever. However, toil in Torah and doing good deeds do bestow a genuine advantage. Remember our predecessors who were before us, all of whose love, desire, and joy are already lost, but who are being judged severely for partaking of worldly pleasures. Remember our predecessors who were before us, all of whose love, desire, and joy are already lost. The Gra tells his family to remember previous generations who were so greatly invested emotionally in the gratification of this world, and yet nothing remains of the temporary happiness that wealth afforded them at the time. Sforno to Koheles adds a dimension to this expression of lost joy. In the case of all physical pleasures, even after the actual pleasure has ceased, one still enjoys the memory of the pleasure derived. But after one passes on from this world, there is no longer any remnant of the erstwhile pleasure. Indeed, then, after death, the love, desire, and joy experienced are now completely lost. But who are being judged severely for partaking of worldly pleasures? This statement begs explanation. Why is enjoyment of this world worthy of punishment? What sin is there in deriving pleasure from the world? Moreover, the Talmud in Yerushalmi teaches that a person will come under scrutiny during his judgment as to why he did not partake in the pleasures available to him. If so, why should someone be judged severely for partaking in worldly pleasures? It seems he should be judged severely for not enjoying these pleasures. It would seem that we must distinguish between pleasures of this world that are needed to maintain one's health and well-being, for which we will be taken to task if these needs were not met, and those pleasures that are solely for the sake of self-gratification, which should be avoided. See Mesilas Yesharim, chapter 13. Alternatively, this can be explained based on the Gra's explanation to Mishle, that a person whose every thought is focused on helping others and for the sake of performing a mitzvah, such a person, even when he directs pleasure to himself, he is deemed to have done a mitzvah, because all his thoughts are presumed to be for the sake of heaven. But someone whose deeds are not pure in intent, and his altruism is suffused with self-interest, when he partakes in worldly pleasures, not only does he not earn reward for his actions, he will suffer punishment for his actions. And what is the point of pleasures to man, whose end is to descend into dust, maggots and worms, when all his pleasures turn to bitterness in the grave, as death is bound to man, and there is no hope? When all his pleasures turn to bitterness in the grave. These words may be understood in light of the Gra's words to Mishle, where he explains that after death a person undergoes 7 stages of judgment, the fourth of which is called Chebut HaKever, beating in the grave. At this stage, destructive angels torture a person with painful whips of fire on each limb of the body that derived pleasure from this world that was not for the purpose of a mitzvah. As death is bound to man, Chazal in Bracho 17a quote Rabbi Yochanan, who would say upon completing a Sefer Yov, a person's end is death, an animal's end is slaughter, and all will die. The Gra, quoted in the Sefer Imre Noam, explains, and all will die, means that constantly, from the moment a person is born, he is drawn inexorably closer and closer to his day of death. The import of the Gra's words is that, from the day of one's birth, his future fate of death is bound to him, as he travels closer and closer to that destination. Throughout one's lifetime, he and death are never truly apart. See also Share Teshuvah by Rabbeinu Yonah. It arouses the greatest wonder that a person can be at middle age and see his days winding down as his body begins to deteriorate. How could he hide his eyes from seeing this and deaden his heart from understanding, and not see clearly that he is moving toward his final destination, day and night? And there is no hope. In the text of Iggeres HaGra of Rabbi Yechezkel Sarna, the words belong here. Instead, at the end of the paragraph, as is found in the text of the Iggeres. Rabbi Yechezkel explains the text based on the pasuk Divrei Hayamim. For our days on earth are like a shadow, and there is no hope. Rashi explains this to mean, there is no hope to escape death. Similarly, the Gra means to hint here that death is the ultimate fate of every person, and no one can hope to escape its clutches. And what is this world, whose days are full of vexation and pain, that even in the night does not allow him to sleep, and even death affords no hope, whose days are full of vexation and pain, that even in the night does not allow him to sleep? The Gra's words here are based on the pasuk Koheles, for all his days are painful, and his business is vexation. Even at night he has no rest. Ibn Ezra to that pasuk explains, all of man's waking hours are spent in frustration due to the fact that matters are not resolved according to his wishes. And so, even at night, when he is free to dream, he can find no rest, since most dreams are an outgrowth of one's thoughts by day. The Gra similarly writes in his commentary to Yonah, we see from here that even if the entire world was one man's, still all his days would be filled with aches. And even as he accumulates possessions, he will also increase worries. Finally, the pasuk in Koheles states, sweet is the sleep of the laborer, and the satiety of the rich does not let him sleep. Metzudas David there writes, being sated with great wealth does not necessarily allow its owner to sleep peacefully, because his business dealings are many, and he will ponder them continuously, stealing his slumber. And even death affords no hope. Most texts of the Gra's letter place these words of no hope here at the end of this sentence. Accordingly, his intent may well be as follows. The Yetzer Hara tells a person that he may at least look forward to the peace that death will ultimately bring. But as the Mishnah Pirkei Avos states, let not your Yetzer Hara reassure you, saying that death will be your refuge, because against your will you will have to give an accounting before the King of Kings. Blessed is he. And that is the reading of Iggeres HaGra, letter of the Vilna Gaon to his family, an ethical letter to gain something from. All right. Have a wonderful night. Laila Tov. Shavua Tov.